Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome in to the Windup. I am Chris Phillips. He is Harrison Fant. This is SEC Unfiltered's bi-weekly college baseball show, and we have got a ton to discuss here on this Monday. A bit of a statement weekend, an electric weekend, a very loud weekend for some SEC clubs out there. Again, guys, really appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Again, as always, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast where you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. And as always, we're powered by our friends over at FANDUEL. Visit FANDUEL.com/SECU to join today and get started with $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that's FANDUEL.com/SECU to get $150 in bonus bets today. The Windup officially returns. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He is Harrison Fant, joining me once again as, again, we react to, break down everything that happened over the weekend, the second weekend of the 2025 SEC baseball season. We'll also take a look at the midweek slate upcoming on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. Again, appreciate all those tuned in via YouTube, all those listening on podcasts. We really appreciate you all tuning in, and a lot to get into, a lot to discuss. We had some noteworthy performances in tournament play, non-conference slate, of course. Once again, this is the Windup. I am Chris Phillips. Joining me once again as he does each and every single show, Harrison Fant. What's going on, Harrison? Appreciate you taking the time, my friend. Really excited to chat because, again, a lot of teams, or at least a number of teams, made statements over the weekend. I know we see them in the comments already for those tuned in live. A lot of folks excited to talk some SEC baseball, man. I'm excited to chat it with you. And by the way, I do want to start as well. Congratulations once again to you. Obviously, you were on the Georgia Tech color commentary, the play-by-play broadcast for Georgia Tech baseball. I was able to tune in on Saturday and Sunday ever so briefly, but job well done, my friend. Excited to chat with you.
Thank you, Chris. Glad to be back here talking SEC baseball. It was a really cool opportunity for me to call play-by-play or call color analyst for Georgia Tech baseball, just a team I grew up rooting for. My dad went to Georgia Tech's alumni there. Close to the program, growing up going to Danny Hall baseball camps, and kind of a full circle moment for me and an incredible experience. My parents and family got to come out Sunday and watch the game and support me in that way. So it was really cool and a blessed opportunity for me. But SEC baseball, you miss out on a bunch when you call other games, and trying to catch up on it's a lot, especially when all 16 teams play different teams. But that's why we have people like Chris on the scene, sight on scene, boots on the ground in Duval, watching the Tide roll. And then, Oklahoma, we got Jake out there watching some of them, and the weekend that they had. I know we got a lot to talk about with them, and a lot of Sooner fans watching closely here as we headline it with him, I think.
Yeah, SEC Unfiltered was all over the place, man. We had you in Atlanta. We had Jake McKeever out in Round Rock, myself out in Jacksonville. So we were all over. By the way, I was going to say, Georgia Tech, they're not going to hold it against you, the fact that the first game you're in the booth, they lose to Marshall, right? They're not going to.
I told our producer and play-by-play guy, I said, I don't know if Danny Hall is going to let me come back tomorrow. Luckily, they did. And before game 3 on Sunday, I said, if Tech loses this one too, and Danny finds out there's no shot, I'm coming back. They got a good laugh out of that, but luckily it wasn't the case.
Yeah, they won the series. They won Sunday. Thankfully, they take 2 of 3, so it wasn't all your fault.
Marshall used all their high leverage arms on Saturday too.
Yeah,
in a close game.
Yeah. Really quickly, again, our friends over at Chinook Seeds chimed in. Good looking hat. Appreciate you, Chinook. I am rocking, for those that cannot see and are listening, the Chinook Seedery hat. Love those guys. Use promo code SECU. Harrison's got the College World Series cap on. Again, use promo code SECU when you check out at Chinook Seeds, 10% off. Love those guys. I'm averaging about a bag of seeds a game, Harrison, at this point. So I'm going to need a reload in about a month.
So. I didn't have any in the broadcast booth, but my brother was chewing on some Chinook seeds at the Georgia Tech baseball game this weekend. So he repped the brand for the fam, that's for sure. And I'm back in the Louvre.
You're back in the Louvre. You are. Nathan says, roll tide from Baton Rouge. What's going on? Stevie G, Boomer, Sooner. Our guy Travis Davidson does a great job covering the Sooners. They're on here. So on that note, also our guy Jake says, go Gators. We'll get to them a little bit later in the show. But let's start, Harrison. Again, you see the folks. Let's give the people what they want. We've got to start, because we're going to talk all these tournaments, of course, everything that happened. But we got to start what happened in Round Rock, Texas. The Round Rock Classic. Oklahoma makes the statement of the weekend. I would say Harrison had by far the loudest weekend, I would argue, of any SEC team. And we talked about it last week, right, on Thursday going in. Hey, if you're able to go 2-1, it's a great weekend. They go 3-0 with wins over Oregon State and Virginia on Saturday and Sunday. We're talking about two College World Series, probably national championship caliber programs, caliber ball clubs.
Absolutely.
You start the weekend off, obviously, with a 3-2 win over Minnesota. Again, those other two games on Saturday, Sunday, 8-4 against Oregon State, 5-4 in 12 innings against Virginia. You win that game late Sunday night on a bunt play that well executed. And Harrison, when you put the ball in play and you make college fielders field a bunt in a pressure situation, what happened can happen. An errant throw leads to the run scoring. You win the game in 12. We'll get into some more of the details of each individual game, Harrison, but your thoughts on Oklahoma's weekend. Again, the loudest weekend by far, I would argue, of any SEC team, taking down two top 10 programs over the weekend in Round Rock.
Absolutely the loudest weekend by any SEC team, and probably any team in the country, if you want to go that far. I think we should go that far because the Oklahoma Sooners rocked Round Rock. They rocked the Classic, and they impressed, I think, and opened a lot of eyes for other teams in the SEC and around the country, obviously, that Oklahoma is here to play in the SEC and here to compete at the top.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what they did, man. I think it starts on the bump for them. And we talked about this on Friday Night Spikes, that it was a great Friday for aces. Obviously, I thought Kyson Witherspoon obviously got it going, 12 strikeouts in his outing. And Minnesota, talking to some folks, a pretty stingy Big Ten team. I mean, they're not the caliber of what they saw Saturday, Sunday, but a pretty solid team. So you get the 1-run win there. But then you go throughout the weekend, scoring 8 runs against Oregon State, beating them 8-4, beating a Virginia team that I know Virginia scuffled a little bit, but still, Virginia's College World Series caliber, national championship caliber. And I guess we shouldn't really be all that surprised, Harrison. And it is early in the season, and we got a long way to go. Conference play will come up here in a few weeks, and we'll start to separate the boys from the men, if you will. But I think Oklahoma and Skip Johnson's club really just, we've spent all preseason talking about what Texas is going to do, or maybe some other programs in the conference. I think Oklahoma made the point this week in Harrison that they are one to be taken seriously. I mean, this is a program that just a few years ago was in the National Championship Series. Last year was hosting a regional. It obviously didn't go the way they wanted in the postseason. But, if there's one thing they're going to do, they're going to pitch well enough to make it work. It's just, can guys on a consistent basis like Jackson Willits, Easton Carmichael, can they step up and come up clutch? And they did this weekend. That was the big thing. I mean, you saw Carmichael on Saturday with the big home run. Willits had a big home run on Sunday. Obviously the other Witherspoon twin pitched pretty well on Saturday. And they pieced it together on Sunday, Johnny Holstaff. But, I walk away really, really impressed with what I saw with Oklahoma, man. I am absolutely I'm absolutely higher on them from the standpoint of making noise in the conference this season. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing, we had, I don't say concerns, but we were stable and knew that this pitching staff was going to deal, especially the headline starters that they have in Malachi and Kyson Witherspoon, the twins, and then, the rest of the staff behind them. But it took a lot of guts from this bullpen to get it done, especially on Sunday against a lethal Virginia Cavalier team that is definitely an Omaha caliber team. I think the top, if not one of the top talented teams in the ACC with Florida State, and to be able to all weekend, it felt like hit and have timely hits from this offense. I mean, Kyle Branch, I think, you have to give him an offensive player of the game it felt like multiple games, offensive player, I think, of the series and weekend for Oklahoma, just doing it in different ways. And the supporting cast around him, it wasn't just him, because we talk about teams, you have to have more than one guy, more than two guys. So that way, you protect them in the lineup and you have a deep lineup where, only our offensive production is going to come from the top half of our lineup. You have to have deeper lineups in the SEC. And, you have guys like him and you have guys like Jason Walk and Jackson Willits that are also very talented guys and very talented bats that when they don't have their best game, you have other guys step up, and Kyle Branch really delivered, I think, offensively for the Sooners this weekend. Yeah,
and I would say this too, Harrison, and again, I taking nothing away from the weekend because you beat Oregon State and Virginia in back-to-back days. You deserve all the credit in the world. They're now in the top 25, obviously, sitting at number 16 in the latest D1 baseball poll. Well-deserved, like I mentioned, when you had the kind of weekend they did. And I think a lot of folks, and myself included, if you look at some of our preseason chatter, I know Oklahoma fans felt like they were getting disrespected, and that's totally fair.
I had them in my just outside the top 25.
Yeah, I think there was just I think there was reason for optimism, but we wanted to see him prove it. And obviously you did that this weekend. I actually had some conversations with some folks this morning, Harrison, and I would still say the thing with them, they're going to pitch. It's a Skip Johnson club. They're going to pitch. They're going to give themselves opportunities to win a lot of ball games, a lot of series going throughout SEC play. The big question in SEC play will just be on a night in, night out basis, do they have enough offense? That'll be the big question, right? And there's a few clubs in this conference that have that question. But I tell you, man, when you have a guy like Kyson Witherspoon that spins the ball the way he does, dude, they're going to have a chance every Friday night. I mean, he's electric. He's electric.
And Chris, I mean, the talent that he is, but also, you get in the hole early, giving up a leadoff home run, you retire the next 13 batters straight. Talk about locking in after that. I mean, 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned, 12 Ks, no walks. I mean, that's just, if you can get that or close to that even on a Friday night every week, you're going to have a very good chance to win your Friday game every single week. And then, I mean, his brother did the same thing. He gave up a leadoff home run, a first inning home run as well, and then really locked in, the next few innings. I mean, that's just what it takes to be successful in SEC. But like I said earlier, I think the bullpen, like they kind of Johnny Hole staffed it on Sunday against Virginia, but to do so and do so effectively. I mean, Cameron Johnson gave you he kept you in the game for 3 innings. It was a short start, gave it 2 runs on 5 hits, but then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys go. And Dylan Crooks, I mean, locked it down for 3 innings. I mean, before the game, 3 innings, 1 hit, 2 strikeouts, 1 walk, no runs. I mean, that is slamming the door against a lethal, like we said, lethal Virginia Cavalier offense that was in Omaha last year. It has a lot of really good players back and a lot of really good pieces that he added to the lineup. I mean, I think keeping Virginia to 6 hits, I think you can do that. You're obviously going to have a really good shot to be in that game, if not win it. And when you have the performance to support that on the offensive side, like you do, like on the mound, like you do the offensive side, you give yourself a very good shot to come out with a win. And they did. I mean, they out-hit Virginia 12-6. And they even committed more errors than them, but they still out-hit them and had the opportune hits, had the walk-off in the 12th. But, I mean, a great bounce-back win, I think, there that needs to be highlighted more because they're down a 3-0 hole early in the second inning.
And there's something beautiful and poetic, I think, Harrison, about the game ending on a bunt, small ball. Obviously, today's baseball, so much home run, power dependent, and we totally understand that, but it is kind of just one of those how can you not be romantic about baseball moments. I guess if you're on the Oklahoma side, if you're on the Virginia side, you don't feel that way.
Kyle Branch, tournament MVP, true freshman replacing a 3-year starter. Talk about being ready to play and doing that in the SEC and having the talent to do so in producing. I mean, a lot of respect, a lot of praise for him, and I think he absolutely deserved it.
Yeah. Oklahoma deserves all the love today, Harrison. I mean, again, I would say that the loudest weekend in college baseball, I would agree with you. When you have the kind of arms they roll out there, when you have a baseball man like Skip Johnson, that I think, again, is one of the – and people are going to probably look back at my head coach rankings and say, what are you talking about? But he is one of the better coaches in the SEC. It's just the SEC is that deep.
Absolutely.
It's a really good early sign that Oklahoma is going to play second fiddle to nobody. Now, do I think realistically, does this mean Oklahoma is going to win the SEC this year? That's not what I'm saying. But I tell you, as we continue talking about these tournaments, the depth of this conference, we talk about it all the time. But people were excited adding Texas and Oklahoma for football reasons and, basketball, and you totally understand that. But I think we're seeing why we were so excited about adding them on the diamond as well, because you added 2 really – high-quality programs that are filled with tradition. It's kind of, to me, like going 3-0 in that tournament, it's almost kind of a culture win too. Like you don't go 3-0 unless you came in expecting to do that. So while there may have been some skepticism in the preseason, there may have been some doubts, you can obviously tell Skip Johnson's club and those within that locker room, like they expected to go to Round Rock and go 3-0. You're not beating the likes of Oregon State, Virginia if you don't. That speaks to Skip Johnson, his culture. And, by the way, it speaks to the fact they got some pretty damn good ball players. So I'm excited to kind of see how the rest of their season evolves, especially as we get into conference play. Again, they may not win the conference. There's probably going to be some weekends where the bats let them down. I just think realistically, do they have as many of those guys as some others? Maybe not.
But they prove that they're there.
Oh, they're going to be one hell of an out for
Jacksonville.
That's going to be a brutal weekend.
Sam Christensen, Kyle Branch. I mean, you have talent up in this lineup. I mean, It's there. It's just going to be able to produce on a consistent level, which is what the elite SEC teams do week in and week out.
Yeah, and great pitching beats great hitting, and they have plenty of that. The arms are abundant there in Oklahoma. So big weekend for Boomer Sooner Harrison as we continue.
Boomer.
Again, Boomer indeed. Another, and also, by the way, we have to highlight this, and I'll ask you this question. Who'd have ever thought we'd be starting off the windup, kicking off the windup, an SEC baseball show, talking about Oklahoma? Oklahoma leading the headlines in the SEC. How about it? Making noise early in your first year in the conference on the diamond.
When you play like that and you have a weekend like the Sooners did, that's what happens.
Yeah, Boomer Sooner indeed. Another big one, another statement weekend, Harrison. Maybe not quite as loud because the competition, you just, for what it's worth, you just did not play in Oregon State, Virginia type of caliber. But let's talk about what the Alabama Crimson Tide did down in Jacksonville. I was at this one, the Jacksonville College Baseball Classic. The Crimson Tide go 3-0. Friday, they beat Coastal 9-2. Saturday, they blank NC State 4-0. And on Sunday, a wild and wacky game. Harrison, Alabama beats Ohio State on a walk-off home run, 12-10, in a game they were down 10-0, Harrison. They scored 9 runs in the last 3 innings to win this ball game. Again, I was there in person, man. I leave impressed. I mean, I leave really impressed. Now, again, the competition wasn't what like an Oklahoma faced, but again, you take it for what it's worth, and watching them, some things that jumped out to me immediately as we look at the overall weekend as a whole and these individual games. Alabama, it's so interesting, Harrison. They're never like top of the league, but they've always got like 1 or 2 arms that are just like, yeah, that guy's going to be a draft pick, like 100%. I mean, they surprise you almost with how good the pitching is, and I think that's the case again. Like their frontline starting pitching this year, you know, of course, as long as they stay healthy and everything, it's fantastic. I mean, I loved what I saw from Zane Adams, Riley Quick on Friday and Saturday. I think Zane Adams was up to like 97, 98 miles an hour. He gives up 1 earned, 6 Ks. These guys, again, they went under the radar because we had so many other aces that were racking up double-digit Ks. But Zane Adams was fantastic. Riley Quick, really good 4 innings pitch. And again, you asked me, Harrison, about the fact both these guys only went, 4 innings or into the 5th inning. I was really impressed with Rob Vaughn and that staff. I felt like it was more so, I mean, obviously the guys are pitching well. They didn't get pulled because they weren't doing a good job. They had a plan. Like I think Bama, they had a plan. They had certain pitch counts and certain lengths, and I don't think they were going to compromise those plans just for the sake of, hey, we're trying to be Jacksonville College Baseball Classic champions, all due respect. They had a plan. They executed it, and give the guys credit in the bullpen that came out and were asked to do a job. They came out and shoved. I mean, Saturday was just a pitching clinic. I mean, NC State never got anything going. And then listen, Sundays are going to get kind of squirrely for a lot of people, right? I mean, it's just, we see it all the time, Harrison. It's, probably bet the overs on Sundays. It typically happens. You get kind of these crazy games, and especially the resiliency,
a better opportunity there to bet.
Yeah, especially in the non-conference. But the resiliency of Alabama to be down 10-0. Justin LeBron is a freak. Kid hits 2 home runs in the game, 6 ribbies. Second home run, he has the ultimate pimp job. I was happy he didn't get tossed because he very well could have. Flips the bat over to Ohio State's dugout. He has 2 home runs in the game. And by the way, the second home run comes after Ohio State, couple blunders in the field. They definitely should have been out of the inning if they make their plays. Instead, you give Alabama a couple extra outs. Justin LeBron comes up, and he makes you pay. And then, of course,
it was back-to-back at-bats for him and on an 0-2 count that he's been fighting off pitches?
Yeah.
I mean, to do that, that's just absolutely a dagger to a pitcher. I mean, you got him 0-2. He's fighting off a couple really good pitches and then just blast a 3-run bomb.
Yeah, and then the Hodo obviously walk-off through a homer that felt like it just kept carrying and carrying and carrying. I mean, listen, this is another one where I don't think Bama's going to win the conference or anything, Harrison, but man, the middle of the pack in this league is going to be so freaking good, and a team like Alabama is yet again another example of that.
Yeah, and you talk about the middle of the pack. I think we've talked about it before that, let's say 6/7 spot in the SEC, probably let's go 6 to about 11 is going to be probably 2, if not 3 games difference.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 4, but probably 3. I mean, that's how close and how deep the SEC is. It's going to be all season long.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but you talk about offense. I mean, Brennan Norton, Justin LeBron, Bryce Fowler. I mean, Will Hodo. You got 3 guys batting above 340, and Brennan Norton's batting above 400. Justin LeBron is pushing 380. I mean, they're all 4 of those names are getting on base. Their OPS is over 1,000. mean, Justin LeBron's is almost 1,500. That is insane. That's almost video game numbers.
Yeah, I got to give some love to Harrison, because again, I was there in person, saw all 3 games. Got to give some love to Brendan Norton. Alabama's starting second baseman, injured, broke his wrist, I think, or something. He's out for the year. Norton slides in and fills in. He's this small 5'9", like 195, stocky dude. Dude, he's a spark plug. I mean, all weekend long, this kid is going crazy. He's pumping up the team, and he gets a couple big knocks too. And I don't know that people were really expecting that, because again, he's the backup second baseman, like he's filling in. Had a couple big knocks over the weekend, so he was impressive. I'll say the thing with Bama is this: I'd still like to see more from them from the standpoint of like game changers in the lineup. I don't know that, like I said, they're not a Tennessee. They're probably not a Florida. Like, they don't have quite as many of those guys. But, man, they had some dudes step up, man. They had some dudes step up and had some big swings of the bat. And obviously the pitching staff held it down. And, even though it was a high-scoring game Sunday, they had I think they gave up a 7 spot in the 3rd inning of that game. Yeah. I mean, so give credit to the bullpen for at least.
Talk about responding. I mean, you give up a 7 spot in the 4th inning. You're down 10-0. You put up a 3 spot in the bottom of the 4th. That's how you answer and chip away. You put up 1, 2, 3 is a really good number after giving up a 7 spot in a long inning. I mean, that also gives, your defense and pitching staff, a little bit of break and rest. I mean, that's like, hey, like, we're not out of this. That gives you some confidence going forward. But, I mean, to touch on Brendan Norton more, I mean, you talk about coming in and filling in a new role. I mean, he's a senior. He's not like a young guy in this league. He's a transfer from Jackson State, not too far down the road in the state of Alabama, where he played 3 years, and he had over 100 RBIs in his career at Jacksonville State, excuse me. And I mean, 24 home runs in 3 years. I know that's, we see some guys do that in 1 year, but to do that and have like a number of at bats and reps and experience that he has to come in and fill that role, it makes sense why he was able to plug in and, get off to a hot start for him in his season and just be a valuable piece so far of this offensive lineup for Alabama.
Yeah, he was a lot of fun to watch. And really that entire Alabama team, again, it started with the starting pitching, the frontline starting pitching. It's very similar to Oklahoma, I feel like, what I'm saying. Frontline starting pitching was really good. You had guys, I'm just saying from the way they won from the standpoint of like frontline starting pitching, guys emerging in the lineup. Oh.
I'm going to take it since he jumped real quick. But, I mean, I think you have to give the bullpen credit too. I mean, because the bullpen for Alabama was so good. It felt like, for the most part, all weekend. And Braylon Myers, 2 shutout innings with 2 strikeouts. And then, you have other guys that step in. I mean, to close it for 2-inning close for him, I think is huge and a big, important role to have. I mean, most guys don't go 2 innings in a close. I mean, you had Carson Ozimer go an inning, just over an inning, and do what he did and shut the door there. I mean, to have guys that do that consistently is going to be a vital piece, an important piece for Alabama to have, let alone any team to have. I mean, it's going to be, you have Tate Robinson go 3 shutout innings with 1 hit and 4 strikeouts against this really good offensive Ohio State team that they've been struggling. They give up 2 huge innings to, and then that keeps you in the game. That gives your offense a chance. And I mean, it's just unbelievable to see. I mean, I was not expecting that much I wasn't expecting that dominant performance from Alabama's bullpen, but they did prove against, I think Ohio State is better than their record shows. They're 1-5, but they're a talented team. They've shown they can hit, they take advantage of opportunities when they come. And I think the NC State win, it's a 4-0 shutout win. It's less dramatic, but I think it's going to play, and it deserves a lot more credit than it does because it got overshadowed by Ohio State, honestly. I mean, the dramatic finish that Ohio State was, and you beat a 12th ranked NC State team and you blank them. I mean, you blank them the entire game. You shut them out. I mean, there's their first shutout win of the season. I mean, let's see. The last one was against number 21 Troy in May of last season. Or sorry, that was their last ranked win was against number 21 Troy of May of last season. First shutout this season. Last shutout was a 12-0 win over Ole Miss last April. I mean, you're not going to shut out a ton of teams in the SEC, let alone, I think, throughout the season. But to do that against a really good team and a team that was in Omaha 8 months ago in NC State. I mean, I think that really gives the bullpen a lot of boost of confidence. I mean, you have everyone that pitched dealt. I mean, no one gave up more than one hit. Riley Quick, 4 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 4 Ks, 1 strikeout. Matthew Heiberger, 2 innings, 1 hit, 1 strikeout, no runs, no walks. Hagen Banks, 1 2/3, 1 hit, 2 strikeouts, no walks. Connor Ball, he had a walk, but then they go to Carson Osmer, 1 1/3, no hits. He had 2 walks and a strikeout, but just, I think, really good pitching staff management too from Alabama that, gives them the best opportunity to be in the game as long as possible and let offensive players and offensive studs like Justin LeBron, Jason Torres, who I think is a really talented player in this lineup. And then you have guys like Will Hodo and Brendan Norton, who have been off to a insanely hot start this season, do what they did. And it's going to play dividends, I think, down the road. So we'll see how, that continues along. And if they can continue to build this offensive lineup and the pieces together with it, but I'm excited to see it. So, and whenever Chris comes back, we'll jump back in with him, but I do want to bounce to, there he is. There he is.
I had to call an audible.
There he is.
The new webcam is giving us some issues, so I will.
Yeah. Well, I finished up Alabama for you. Don't worry.
Until it isn't.
The bullpen, gave the bullpen their flowers. They deserved it. And
I really just put you on the spot there. So
yeah, and I took it and ran with it with a magical background.
Yeah, those listening via podcast, we had some technical issues with the camera, but I did want to say, great turnout by Alabama fans this weekend. I thought they got out and really supported Rob Vaughn's club, and that was good to see. That was really, really good to see. I don't know what's more of a tradition, the Masters or Chris, and technical difficulties.
I think we're even right now.
I know, you being late and my technical issues. It's
I was on the phone with some sources.
You were on the phone with some sources. Love that. So
I mean, let's get into this college baseball series.
Yeah, the one Arkansas. Yes, Arkansas down there in Arlington, Texas, where we just were. Sorry, we're making adjustments here. I'm a little bit frazzled, but it's okay. We're going to be fine. Anyways, great weekend for Bama. 3-0. Yeah, that's what exactly. It's non-conference for everybody. Again, Arkansas 2-1 down at the college baseball series Friday. They lose to Kansas State, Harrison. It was a rough start of the weekend, 3-2, but bounce back, take 2 of 3 in that tournament win Saturday, 2-1 against TCU. Sunday, 8-6 against Michigan. Harrison, nobody loves a low-scoring baseball game and winning with pitching more than the Arkansas Razorbacks. And we saw on Friday that can bite you from time to time if the bats don't show up. Give Kansas State credit. I think they've had a really, really good start of their year. They've proven they're going to be a force in the Big 12. Overall thoughts for Arkansas. I don't know that and again, you go 2-1, so you had a successful weekend. I just don't know that my thoughts on them have changed all that much. One of the encouraging signs, I will say, swinging the sticks, the Aloy brothers had a fantastic weekend, 5 RBIs from them. The offense did show life in the Sunday game against Michigan. Again, you win that game 8-6, obviously. But they're going to win with pitching, Harrison. I mean, they're going to win with pitching. That's kind of just who they are. And, talking to some Arkansas folks down there, I think the frustration for them, Harrison, it's not like there are other guys that – like they're playing their best 9. They really feel like they're playing their best 9 right now, those guys in the lineup. They just got to hope guys get hot, and certainly they can. They've got talented hitters, but it's been a slow start offensively. But, again, pitching picked you up on Saturday. And then give them credit. They did put them in 8th spot on Sunday. So, overall takeaways, Harrison, from the weekend, 2-1 for the Hogs there in Arlington.
Yeah, for me, it's the same, I think, as yours. And just nothing that really changed the needle either way for me for them, because they love playing in low-scoring games. That's where they're, I don't want to say bread is buttered, but that's where they are consistently playing in low-scoring games because of the offense and because of how dominant the pitching staff is. I mean, it's something that is just what you think of Arkansas baseball. You think dominant pitching and, slightly below average SEC hitting that hopefully has the right timing of hitting. And, like you said, they saw some of both sides of that fruits of the labor there. The Olay brothers, they've been leading the team. They're both ironically batting .417 this season, leading the team. And then you have Brent Irondale, who is batting .375, but after that, no one's batting over 300. I mean, Kendall Diggs has been struggling too to start the season. I mean, he's batting .235, which isn't terrible, but just the talent that he is and know where he can be, and we feel like he should be. It's, still early in the season, but I think for Arkansas's lineup to have a boost on the offense side, it's going to be from Kendall Diggs having a little bit more consistent and better games in the box, because the deeper the lineup, the less holes there are, the more opportunities for you are to score throughout the lineup, not just in the top half or whatnot. But I think it's also worth noting, Chris, that Wood departed from the game after warm up in the top of the third. So what I saw and what I'm hearing, it's shoulder soreness. I haven't heard anything else yet from that, but I mean, that's gonna be something to keep an eye on. I think this week and leading up to this weekend to see if he's, still starting this weekend or whatnot. But pitching staff, I think, did well. Zach Root shoved, 10 Ks, 2 walks in 5 innings, only 2 hits, 1 run. I mean, he has made it feels like a seamless transition, Chris, to Arkansas and to the SEC. Gabe Gakel, only 2 strikeouts and 4 walks, really untraditional from what we normally see from him and his, I think, dominance, and especially with the stuff he has. But, then you have Will McIntyre in the bullpen take care of business like he has done, it feels like, the past 6 or 7 years. But yeah, pretty non-needle mover for me either way.
Yeah, Gage Wood for sure. That's something to keep an eye on. He was leaving that game early. Something we'll definitely pay attention to, and we'll see. Shoulder soreness is nothing to mess with, obviously. Saturday we mentioned the pitching, man. Zach Root, Beetleshees, Christian Fouch. They were really, really good against, again, a TCU team that I think folks have high expectations for and high hopes for. And it's just, I think, Harrison, it's just the way Arkansas is probably going to have to win. Every now and then, on a Sunday game, we might see them. And maybe the lineup's going to be better than we're expecting. You never know. It's hard to tell right now. But I don't know. I don't know how encouraged you can be early on if you're an Arkansas fan about the offense specifically. Again, Hogs are still going to be a really, really good club. They're still going to be, I think, fighting at the top of the SEC. They could win the SEC. It's what they do in the regular season. But that's the biggest thing we're going to want to continue to see, man, is just progression from the offensive side. Again, I don't want to overplay it because you win 2 out of 3. I think you and I said coming in, I think, winning 2 out of 3, or certainly if you swept, but as long as you win the weekend, it's a positive weekend. But just continuing, like a guy like Kendall Diggs needs to step up. I like Iredale a lot. I think he's a guy.
Yeah.
But it's just
who
are the leaders of the offense? Is it going to be the Alloy brothers, if you will? We're still just kind of searching and waiting for guys to emerge. Like you mentioned, not a lot of guys hitting over 300 in that lineup. So, that's what we're gonna continue to look for. I will say this before we go any further, Harrison, because unfortunately the next tournament we're going to highlight is going to completely trounce what I'm about to say, if you will. But overarching theme of the weekend, Harrison, and maybe it's kind of no duh because we already knew this, but the overarching theme to me, Harrison, is just the depth of this league. We're not talking about, we kind of know what Tennessee is going to be, what A&M is going to be, what LSU is going to be. We're talking about the likes, and this is no disrespect, Oklahoma, Alabama. Obviously Arkansas is one of those upper echelon, but the fact that I think what we saw is just the depth and how good this conference is. These aren't teams that were picked to win the league in Oklahoma and Alabama, and they go 3-0 in their respective tournaments. The depth of this league is so crazy that there's going to be teams, I guarantee you, that finish 9th or 10th in the conference that you're praying you don't see them in your regional. You're praying you don't.
I'll give you an example.
Them show up.
Florida last year. They're a game over 500. They were a 3 seed.
Yeah,
it's just drawn a bad straw.
Yeah, the SEC really showed off this weekend from the standpoint of the depth of the conference, and even teams that maybe were flying under the radar coming in, or that's why we talked about in the preseason, you're trying to do these predicted order of finish, and people get really upset when you pick their team to finish 8th or 9th or what. It's dude, you could finish 9th in this league and be the 15th best team in the country. That's how deep and competitive the league is, and I think you saw that on full display. You saw that on full display this weekend. So,
yeah,
it was. And then again, Arkansas again impressive, going 2-1. Just want to see more from the offense. So, the other tournament, Harrison, we're going to mention it. The Andre Dawson Classic. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here because I don't think their fans really care. But Missouri sucks. There's just no other way to put it. They stink. The jokes were out and about on social media, but dude, respectfully, respect to all the teams they played. You go into an HBCU tournament and you go 1-2 on the weekend. What do you want me to say? Missouri's just not a good baseball team. I think I'd set the over-under in conference wins at, I don't know, man. What's a fair number? 4.5? 5.5? Will they win? Will they win that many?
Last year, and then they sweep Florida.
Yeah, I don't know though, man.
And then Florida goes to Omaha.
Again, all due respect to those clubs they played. I mean, you and I talked about it, Harrison. Like, you need to go 3-0. You need to sweep, and they got killed one of those games too. I mean, it was like they were uncompetitive in one of those losses. So, yeah, I don't know what hope or optimism there is around Missouri baseball, but it's not much. It's not much. So, anyways, guys, that being said, we're going to get to the rest of the weekend, some other notable results as well. Before we do that, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel, because as always, we're brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just beginning on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because FanDuel is your home for NBA live betting. So even if you miss the first few minutes of the game or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can make your picks from the first whistle until the final buzzer. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. However you want to play, now is the perfect time to join. New FanDuel customers get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/SECU to join today. That's FanDuel.com/SECU for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 and up and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 and up and present in D.C. First online real money wager only, $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY, or text HOPE-NY in New York. And again, shout out to FanDuel, again, the official partners and sponsors of the SEC Unfiltered Tour, which I will announce will drop the graphic later today. We had a great time in Jacksonville. Love going to the state of Florida. I love it so much, Harrison. We're going back this weekend. Yours truly going to be in Gainesville, Florida for the 3-game set against the Miami Hurricanes there in Gainesville. And we're double dipping. We're hitting the basketball game Saturday night as well. Florida taking on Texas A&M. College game day is in town. A huge top 10 matchup. So it's going to be an electric weekend down in Gainesville, Harrison. And there's some content in the works, in the pipeline. It's maybe a little bit unexpected from some of you out there. It's going to be electric. We're going to be surprising you at every turn. Going to be getting in town on Thursday. It's going to be a phenomenal weekend. Of course, as you can imagine, first class when it comes to hospitality from the Gators, and I cannot wait to take it all in. My first ever baseball and basketball experience down in Gainesville. So going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it.
A true representation, I think, at least for non-conference, of Condren Family Ballpark down in Florida.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
A brand new ballpark, but kind of what the atmosphere is like, because a lot of us, I think, have been curious about that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Condren Family Ballpark's going to be rocking. The O-Dome's going to be rocking as well. And again, FanDuel taking us down to Gainesville. Really excited for that. Harrison, let's talk about the best of the rest of the weekend. Non-conference play continues to roll on. There were some notable results, though. Not everybody came to the weekend unscathed. A&M drops their series finale to Cal Poly by a final score of 3-2. LSU falls to Omaha in Game 2, which, by the way, there is no fan base, Harrison, more entertaining on social media. And I think they'd probably tell you this. There is no fan base more entertaining on social media when their team is losing a baseball game than the LSU baseball fan base. I mean, it is like the sky is falling. Fire Jay Johnson. He's lost it. He doesn't know what he's doing. It's like, guys, it's late February. We're come on. Anyways, LSU bounces back, wins 2 or 3, but they lose that Game 2. Almost came back and won that game. It was 5-0. Bottom of the ninth, they score 4 runs, lose. They were getting 1 hit going into the 9th inning. Again, they win 2 of 3 still.
They had a no-hitter going in the 8th.
Had a no-hitter. Omaha did. And I will tell you this. We'll get there more in a second in detail. But I was told by some folks, some big LSU baseball fans, LSU fans don't want to hear it, the common fan, but Omaha apparently got some arms. They think really highly of the arms. Take it for what it's worth, but more to it than meets the eye, they said.
Well, we'll get into it.
I was just going to say Florida, Tennessee, they stay red hot, sweep. Auburn, Georgia, Mississippi State, Vandy, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Texas, Kentucky. And I mentioned Florida and Tennessee. They all swept as well. So now, Harrison, when you look at the weekend, I mean, there's a lot to take away. Most teams handle business. You wanted to talk to that LSU game. They lose to Omaha. And I think, again, A&M losing to Cal Poly. It's notable, at least for people to understand these things can happen, right? I mean, it's you play so many of these games, you can lose them. Both teams win their series, but, they're not probably quite as happy as they should be down there in College Station in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that for sure. But I think in LSU as well, with the fan base, but in the pedigree and tradition of the program, I mean, we saw it last year. LSU lost to Nichols. I think most teams need to understand that dropping one game to a mid-major team before conference play is not the end of the world. I mean, LSU loses one to Omaha. It was a really competitive weekend all weekend, Chris. Omaha played very well, but the thing for me is in that game too, with Anthony Ice on the mound, he was really good. 6 innings, 3 hits, no earned, 7 Ks, 2 walks. But LSU's bats, Ben Weber for Omaha went 3 2/3 inning, no hits, no runs, no strikeouts, 6 walks, and LSU couldn't capitalize on a single one of them. I mean, they left so many runners on base, it was frustrating to watch, let alone, I bet, frustrating for LSU fans. But then, I mean, they gave up 8 walks to LSU, and they couldn't do anything with it, really. I mean, they had 6 strikeouts. It wasn't like it was dominating LSU's lineup. It was just allowing them to get themselves out. I mean, that was, I think, the most frustrating part because of how talented this LSU lineup is. I mean, from top to bottom, starting with Daniel Dickinson, Derek Curiel, Jared Jones, Chris Sandville, all the way down to Stephen Milo and Michael Braswell. I mean, that was the most frustrating thing. I mean, outside of that, I think the pitching staff for LSU did very well. I mean, Kane Anderson shoved as he normally does. I mean, it feels like he's just so comfortable in that Friday role and in the arsenal that he has and executing it, back-to-back starts now, and excited to see him continue to do so and grow throughout that role. I mean, Anthony Eisen, I think, like I said, I think he pitched very well. But it's just going to be, just take it with a grain of salt is the biggest thing. I mean, you're playing competitive games, which I think is good to build, rapport and just help continue to build that culture throughout the year. And just, hey, we've been in tough spots before. Now we're in them again. We have that experience in doing so this season with this team. So that's the biggest thing for me with LSU, Chris.
Yeah, they're going to be fine. That's the overarching thing. They're going to be fine. You lose one game, bats go cold. I mean, Harrison, I'm sure you saw there was something in the air on Saturday because, I posted it, but there was a moment where like 5 SEC teams were losing and you're like, what is going on? But man, that's why we love college baseball, man. I mean, it really, and you hate it when it happens to your team, but if you're really honest with yourself deep down, that's why you love college baseball, man, because Cal Poly can beat Texas A&M. Omaha can beat LSU at their parks.
I mean, I'll give you another example. I mean, Georgia Tech, the game I was calling this week, and they're 5-0.
Lose to Marshall.
Marshall's 0-5. I mean, it feels like when it happens, Chris, it's always on a Friday or Saturday, right? You either, play a competitive game, keep a low-scoring game, and you're doing okay against, an elite team's Friday night guy, and there's a chance late in the game, and then, you have 1 or 2 knocks that make a difference, give you a lead or whatnot, or, blow a lead, and you use a lot of high leverage arms, or, maybe a Friday's a blowout and then you use all your high leverage arms on Saturday is what Marshall did against Georgia Tech. And a lot of these mid-major teams, it seems to do that, when they have a best shot to win a game, because it's great for, their culture, their RPI and whatnot. They use all their high leverage arms in their best opportunity to win a game and have a clutch hit or two that makes a difference and maybe pulls off that upset.
I would say this too, Harrison. And again, win's a win. It is what it is. There's no such thing as a bad win, I should say. But the way Tennessee, Florida, and I'll even throw Georgia in this mix, Harrison, the way those 3 are winning is a little bit different because they are kicking ass. And I know Samford gave Tennessee actually a pretty good game on Saturday. I think what was the final, like 5-1 or something like that. A little bit low.
Saturday they had a leadoff home run.
Yes. It was a little bit of a lower scoring game, a little bit closer than I'm sure the locals would have preferred. But the bats for all 3, they're winning differently. Like they're kicking ass. Like every time I see Florida, they're scoring double-digit runs, it seems. Tennessee's, what they're doing is, dude, Tennessee it's scary. And I know it's non-conference. I don't want to like overreact, but you saw them in person. We've been following them as closely as anybody. Dude, their lineup is scary, like already. And then
Chris,
you factor, and then you add in
scary deep too.
and then you add in what they're doing on the mound.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, Liam, we had this conversation Friday night. Like, dude, Liam Doyle could be the SEC's best ace. I mean, really, truly, when you look at his shit is filthy. Like,
he's got some of the most dominant stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you said, it's dominant stuff. So, you know, what Marcus Phillips is doing, the way he's pitching as well, Snead in
Another
game
guy
3.
with elite stuff.
I mean, dude, it's early, but man,
going further,
Tennessee looks good.
Oh, yeah. And I talked about it, leading into the season and opening weekend especially, and I'm going to rehash on it again because it continues to happen. LSU's bench and their bench of freshmen are absolute studs in the making. And it is headlined again, and it will continue to be headlined, I believe, by Levi Clark, freshman who had an absolute nuke, a grand slam for him, I believe. It was just, I mean, he's so talented, and there's so many freshmen that are talented around the country, but I think Tennessee got some of the best crop of freshmen of any team in the country. And it just proves to the studs they have in the lineup, the studs they have on the mound, and the depth of studs they have ready to go and plug in. It's going to play really well and play great to their strengths and dividends down the road for them. And I mean, Florida as well is right up there with them as well.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee, it's what Tony V's been able to do with the portal, but also the way he's recruiting high school. And I mean, it's just, they're again, they really have gotten to a place where they're reload. They're not any semblance of rebuild. You mentioned Florida too. I think still kind of flying under the radar a little bit, but they'll have a shot to make some noise this weekend.
They're fine with that.
Yeah, they are, but they'll have a shot to make a little bit more noise this weekend, obviously, when Miami comes to town and big rivalry series. And, but man, it's just dude after dude after dude in the lineup. Liam Peterson's pitching his tail off. Sully's making the change with the weekend rotation. That'll be interesting. Pierce Capala is now moving to Saturday. Jake Clemente is going Sunday. But dude, what a luxury. I mean, they got 3 legit horses on the weekend. Like stuff, all 3 of them. They got this youngster, Aiden King, who's bumping 97 as a freshman. That is a kid that I will not be surprised at all, Harrison, the day he enters the weekend rotation, like has all the makings of the next Friday night guy. Will not be surprised if he's starting at some point on the weekend. They're able to use him and kind of get him, in the swing of things as a youngster, if you will. I'm seeing Bobby Bozer's name every time I log on social media. I mean, this dude is just.
You log on every time?
I'm just saying every time it seems like I get on Twitter, Bobby Bozer's name is popping up because he just hit a homer. He just hit a sac fly. He did this, did that. And we obviously know the other cast of characters with guys like Luke Heyman and Colby Shelton and Brody Donay. And, they're another one just as deep as anybody. And again, they took care of their business. Really ho-hum, pretty easy for them. And then Georgia, Harrison, they moved up in the top 25. And, Georgia scored 17 runs in their final game on Sunday. They're continuing to hit the hell out of the baseball. So, Georgia's going to be a really, really fun team. That offense is a blast. I mean, they got dudes up and down the lineup. It'll just be, I think, for them, again, as we continue throughout, will the pitching be up to par in SEC play specifically? But, boy, you get into a hitting contest with them. That's not where you want to be. You don't want to have to try to beat Georgia 10-9 because they're probably going to win.
Yeah, I mean, and a guy like they have, I think, that has flown on the radar for, I think, more people than not is UNC Asheville transfer Robbie Burnett, the senior.
Yeah, he was good this
weekend. He
had
a great weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, to add to the depth of
dude, he had like 17 homers for UNC Asheville last year. Like he came in with some pop. Like
I mean, he had 5 RBIs on the weekend. I think he had 5 or 6 hits. I mean, it felt like he was on base almost every game. I think Saturday he was 1 for 3 maybe. I think he was 0 for 3, and then you have other guys around him that pick up the pieces, like Trey Phelps, a stud, super uber talented guy that was a freshman DH last year. Slate Alford, of course. You have guys like Nolan McCarthy, had a big Saturday game for him. No, it's really great to see for them. And, Leighton Finley, I mean, 5 2-hit innings, shutout, 8 Ks, 2 walks. I mean, took care of business as he, we expected him to do so and should. And then Sunday, do the same thing. I mean, Brian Zeldin struggled on Sunday, but the bullpen after him, Alton Davis leading that way, and Matthew Hoskins, I mean, combined 6 2/3, I think, 7 hits, but shut them out. No runs. I mean, 9 Ks, 2 walks. Alton Davis has proven to be a really, really big, valuable piece in the bullpen for Georgia, and I think he will be so going forward.
The other thing, too, I want to highlight about Georgia, man, this team's got sauce, man. They've got swag. Like, I don't know if you saw, they got the new mask, by the way. They now have, like, an actual Bulldog mask they put on after hitting home runs. You know, they had I think it was like a German Shepherd, maybe.
It looks like
now they've got a Bulldog.
I think it was a Belgian Malinois.
Now they've actually got a Bulldog, though. They actually got an English Bulldog mask.
Took them long enough to figure that out.
New mask alert in Athens. So they've got sauce. They've got drip. By the way, I did not mention this previously because of the technical issues, and it kind of threw me off. But I wanted to mention, talk about some sauce and some swag, and I know they got in trouble for it, and they apologized. Whatever. I don't care about that. The Alabama locker room post-game, the Snapchat of FU Ohio State with like half the team, it looked like, throwing the middle finger. I know, like, I probably should be like, oh, shame on you. I loved it. Dude, swag, sauce. Ohio State was chirping. They were chirping. Like, screw the Big Ten. I loved that. I personally loved it. So, you know, I know Riley Quick and the boys are probably paying for it, you know, but man, that was some electric content.
Chris, I want to jump to this comment.
Yeah.
Because we did skip over him a little bit. Bo says, I'd take the Aggie bats over Georgia's. I mean, there are no holes in Early's lineup. And this was something I wanted to hit on like towards the end and circle back to, but
yeah.
I think we do need to talk about it. Just, yes, you dropped the last one to Cal Poly, and Cal Poly is, you know, a scrappy team, I think, West Coast kind of style of play. But the way it kind of happened that a lot of people maybe don't know about, I mean, is a game-tying 2-run homer to left in the 9th. Then the next guy reaches on error, advances to second on a sac bunt, advances to third on a wild pitch, and then scores on a fielder's choice. I mean, it's just, that's super frustrating if you're an Aggie fan. But I think what's even more frustrating is the struggles that they've had in the lineup-wise from the guys you would never expect it. Gavin Grahovac, Jay Slavolette, and Gavin Cash. Gavin's leading the way of those three, batting .227.
I'll say this, Harris, and I'm not trying to make an excuse for him. It has been brutal weather in College
Absolutely.
Station. And again, I'm sound like, because it's been cold in Tennessee. It's been cold other places. But, like, dude, it looks like it's been miserable. Like, dude, it was miserable in Texas this weekend. Like, I think Friday in Round Rock, bro, it was 39 degrees. Out there in Austin, it was like mid-30s. So, like,
Austin, it was 32 degrees and felt like 21.
Yeah, I don't.
So, I get that, Chris, but hear me out. When you have guys like a freshman, Terrence Keel the second, and then you have Jacob Galloway leading the way, batting .429 and .357 respectfully, both right at the cusp, one above, one below, OPS of 1,000, and then Wyatt Hensler not far behind him. And you're, guys that are struggling, or the three of the best probably hitters in the SEC in the country, especially in Jay Slavolette and Gavin Grahovac. I'm not really worried. I'm not, Chris, because we know they're going to swing the bat and they're going to absolutely mash the ball. It may take some time. I mean, I talked to Jay Slavolette about it on behind the scenes about how, early in his career, he struggled and he was batting, under 200 going into conference play. He's like, what am I doing? And then just like things clicked for him. He ended up having a phenomenal season. And those are 2 or 3 bats that, this is times when it's super cold. You're trying to, deal with that and figure things out. I'm not worried about them swinging the bat. I mean, Jace is batting .211, Chris, with an 1,100, almost 1,200 OPS. I mean, he's got 3 home runs and 8 RBIs and 8 walks. I mean, which is just kind of a wild thing to do. So I just think that I'm not worried about them because we know they're going to swing the bat. Those are going to be their 2 or 3 of their biggest bats in this lineup. And once they get going and get hot, this lineup will not have any holes because they're going to be so deep with those 3: Terrence Keel, Jacob Galloway, Wyatt Hessler, and Caden Kent. And then Hayden Schott too. I mean, just once all those pieces fit together, and warmer weather helps, I think, a lot, especially for hitting as well as pitching, but not something I'm really concerned about. Just a frustrating way to lose a game, Chris.
Yeah, I'm not overreacting to it. Again, I don't want to make excuses, but I'll tell you this. I mean, I was out there Friday night and I was in Jacksonville. So I was out there Friday night. Man, it was miserably cold. It was miserably cold. I sound so soft saying
I heard the press box was cold too, Chris.
It was. There was no heat. There was no heat up there. Like, I'm literally trying to type and like my fingers are moving in slow-mo because they're like frozen. So, I mean, I'll tell you this, Harrison. I don't think it's like you're having to win maybe in some uncharacteristic ways. Texas, same way. I mean, they had to win a bunch of low scoring, like 1-run games against Dartmouth, and respect to the Ivy League. Obviously, the SEC has taken guys, plenty of them from the Ivy League. But like, I'm not looking at Texas like, well, that's how they're going to win all years, 4-1, 4-3. I just, dude,
yeah,
it's miserable baseball conditions. You just find a way and get out of there.
I mean,
thankfully, did it.
For Texas, I mean, as cold as it was and the wind blowing in from outfield, several balls that would normally be home runs didn't even get out.
Yeah.
Like it was frustrating for the Texas hitters. And I mean, Jared Spencer struggled with the slider, just it backing up a little bit, still had a, good outing. Max Blue 2 for 4 with the RBI in game 1. I mean, then you have Tommy Farmer, the 4th. I think he had a very, very good weekend himself, especially with these conditions and weather. I mean, he had several RBIs. He was on base. It felt like every game almost. And then Dartmouth Saturday guy, not bad. I mean, really not bad, especially from people around Texas. Just, I mean, Eddie Albert, he was their Saturday guy, went 92-94 with run and threw strikes with multiple pitches.
I mean, there's some sneaky good.
All of Dartmouth's bullpen did.
Yeah, there's some sneaky good. There's some sneaky studs in the Ivy League. I mean, it's why the SEC picks them off like that.
Dylan Volantis from Texas, he absolutely shoved. I think we need to give him props and credit because he absolutely shoved, and he is a super unique lefty. Just with what his build is in kind of pedigree and as he pitches, he's a 7-foot release height, which is so untraditional and uncharacteristic to see. And he's throwing it releasing from 7 feet high with a lot of sink on a sinker, a upper 80s cutter, and a hammer 12-6 curve in the low 80s. I mean, just the stuff and unconventional things that you see from a pitcher like that, you don't see often. And his stuff plays, and he proved it in a long relief out of the bullpen. I mean, he's one of their go-to guys, Chris.
Yeah, that's a good sign for Texas too, to have some.
I mean, and Texas have a lot of Texas guys that are their go-to guys pitched this weekend and pitched very well. I mean, you could go up and down. I'd say all their high leverage arms pitched this weekend and, did very well. And you get a couple guys opportunities, but like you said, they were tight, kind of low scoring ball games, which isn't going to be traditional of, we think, Texas with the power they have in the lineup that they've proven so far this season, but you do take care of business, Chris.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, again, it's a good sign for them because we expect they are going to hit. The final two, Harrison, I want to highlight, and then we'll get into the midweek slate, obviously. I think we definitely need to show Vanderbilt some love. St. Mary's is I've had people telling me how good of a program it is and how tough they can be. Vandy had no issues. They swept with ease, and I thought swung the sticks actually pretty well over the weekend. So good sign for Vandy, taking care of their business. And then Harrison, South Carolina. I mean, they win they win by 10-run rule on Sunday. You look at them, it's not always the flashiest. Like, they're not winning necessarily like Tennessee is on a game in, game out basis, or like Florida, like we mentioned, or Georgia. But they're undefeated. I mean, they're one of the few undefeated still left. And, we talked about it on Thursday of last week, Harrison. The big test for them is this weekend. They've got the Clemson Tigers. They'll go to Clemson Friday, Greenville Saturday in the neutral site, and then Sunday they'll play at Founders Park in Columbia. That'll be the big test. That's where we're really going to find out what South Carolina is. But give credit where credit's due, man. South Carolina stays undefeated. Again, I thought Vandy looked really good. So taking care of your business as you would expect. By the way, yeah. Auburn too, taking care of their business. I think you fairly, Harrison, gave props to Wright State having a good program typically. Auburn didn't give a damn about that. They disposed of them rather easily, which again, give credit to Auburn, a good club. So a lot of teams. I mean, it was it was a great weekend in the SEC for everybody not named Mizzou, which at this point, I don't know. Anyways, it was a great weekend though for the SEC.
Yeah, and I'm going to touch on each of those three briefly. I think South Carolina, obviously they're undefeated still. One of I think there's under 20 teams undefeated left. Alabama's another one too, but not a knock on Alabama, but we saw this last year with them.
Oklahoma's one. Oklahoma's undefeated.
We saw this last year with Alabama and South Carolina struggles once they got to conference play. And I think that, teams like this that take care of business in non-conference, I don't want to say have to worry or, keep an eye out, but like we've seen it before with several of these teams that are doing it again. And it's not teams that have just overpowering stuff on the.
I think you've got to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, to be fair.
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
Because we talked about, Rob On's first year. How is this going to, Alabama's one of the hot teams in the country. They're undefeated going in the conference play. How is this going to translate to the SEC? I think it's another thing we have to watch out and keep an eye on for them. Not saying it won't, but just something to keep an eye out for. And especially this South Carolina team, which I don't think has overpoweringly dominant stuff on the mound like other teams like Oklahoma on the mound or LSU on the mound or Tennessee, right, or Florida. But the pitchers, Jake McCoy pitched well, I think. He got 3 runs in 4 innings, but he looked better than the stat line, I think. He had 8 strikeouts on Sunday. Matthew Becker, 8 Ks, no walks, and 6 1/3 with 2 runs on 3 hits. He filled it up and dominated, honestly, the mound. And Dylan Eskew went 2 innings, no hits, but just a lot of walks. So, Tyler Pitzer came in after him and shoved. 8 strikeouts, 2 walks, no runs, 4 hits in 4 innings. They take care of business then, but just like I said, something to keep an eye out for, Chris.
Yeah, I wonder how the pitching is going to hold up when the competition gets better. You know what I mean? That's yeah.
And I'll touch on Vandy too, because I think RJ Austin needs to get some props for the weekend he's had, the season he's had so far. He went 5 for 9 with 3 or 4 RBIs and 5 runs, 2 walks. He was a threat every time he came to the box, and it felt like on base every single game. Game 1, 12 hits, Chris, from 6 different guys, 7 guys with an RBI. Game 2, 13 hits, 8 guys with a hit, 6 different guys with an RBI. And that was a game they trailed 7-4 in the 7th inning before putting a 9 spot in the 7th inning on just base hit after base hit after base after base hit, right? And that was the game Ethan McElvin struggled, went 3 innings, 3 hits, 4 runs. And he gave up a 3-2 heater down the middle. That was an absolute easily, home run off the bat. It felt like just his struggles have continued a little bit, and hoping that he makes a jump soon. But Miller Green closes it out after 5 relievers and just absolutely slams the door for them, right? 2 innings, no hits, 3 Ks, dominate again. He's just, I think, a very slept on, bullpen guy and closer. That's Miller Green. And then game 3, 9 hits, 7 guys had 7 runs from 6 different guys. 6 guys had a hit and 6 guys with an RBI. The depth of the lineup at Vanderbilt proved more this weekend. That's something also we're going to keep an eye on going forward the rest of non-conference play into SEC plays with Vanderbilt's hitting. But Cody Bowker also shoved too Sunday.
Yeah, successful weekend across the league. We're going to look at some midweek here. Also, Thursday going to be an electric show, Harrison, because we're talking about all these teams, what they can prove. We'll talk about it more Thursday.
But Ole Miss too.
Ole Miss. Yeah,
Hunter Elliott shoved. 6 3-hit innings, no earned, 10 Ks, no walks. And then Riley Max falling behind 5 innings, 3 hits, no earned, 5 Ks, 2 walks. Hunter Elliott, I think he's proven so far to be one of the top starters in the SEC right now. He's putting his name in that rotation.
Yeah, he's it was a great night again for the Aces on Friday night, as we discussed on Friday Night Spikes, and I think we're going to see more of that, man. There's some phenomenal.
Without giving props to him.
There's some phenomenal arms in the league this year. Hunter Elliott has proven to be one of them. It's good to see, man. Good to see him back from the injury, and looks like he's back to himself. And again, Ole Miss breaks into the top 25, so they're getting some props, getting some love. We'll see if they can keep it going. As we look at the midweek slate, Harrison, let's do that really quickly. Funny enough, by the way, I should highlight tonight at the time of us speaking, Monday night, we've actually got SEC baseball. LSU's got a makeup game against Nichols tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock local time. So if you need your fix, which we all do, the LSU Tigers, they play tonight. But the traditional midweek slate, Harrison, on Tuesday, I'm going to run down this list of games. Kentucky and Evansville at 4 o'clock. These are all Eastern time, of course. Arkansas, Grambling State at 4. Tennessee, North Alabama at 4:30. Alabama, Jacksonville State at 5. Mizzou, Lindenwood at 5. How about this one, Harrison? Top 25 matchup in Oxford, Ole Miss and Southern Miss, who we just saw beat Mississippi State last week in the midweek. Again, they'll do battle at Swayze at 5 o'clock Eastern. Oklahoma and Texas Southern at 5 o'clock. Vandy and Tennessee Tech, at 5:30. Florida traveling to Stetson, 6:30 first pitch for the Gators. South Carolina, Gardner-Webb at 6:30. Texas A&M, Texas State at 7. Could be a sneaky good game. Texas Incarnate Word. I think that one's TBA on a first pitch. Auburn, Samford as well. Samford, stingy team. They're stingy in the midweek. Good game. And then how about this one? Mississippi State and Troy, who we just saw play Auburn, played them down to the wire, obviously. Auburn won via walk-off. Mississippi State, another tough midweek game. So some really good ones. And then, Harrison, the Wednesday slate is much, much lighter. We've got Kentucky, Morehead State at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. Georgia, how about at Georgia State in your backyard? In Atlanta, 4 o'clock.
Georgia State doesn't play in the city of Atlanta. I will admit that, though.
Where are they at?
They're in Pantherville, which is like southeast Atlanta.
Oh, see, I thought the baseball team also used Turner Field. I didn't know
they
that.
should. I don't understand why they don't. They should.
That's interesting.
But
it's not like it was once a baseball field or anything. Yeah, Oklahoma, Texas Southern at 5, Florida hosting North Florida at 6:30. And how about this? The game of the night in the SEC on Wednesday night, Harrison, LSU hosting Dallas Baptist. This game, I should say, they're hosting them in Arlington, Texas, in a midweek game at Globe Life. So easily the game of the weekend. Unfortunately, it's probably going to be on Flow, so we'll have to figure that out. Either way, Harrison, what jumps out to you? The midweek slate. I just mentioned LSU, Dallas Baptist. That's a great place to start. But we got some notable games on Tuesday, man. With, like I mentioned, ranked on ranked, Ole Miss, Southern Miss, Mississippi State, Troy. Got some fun midweek matchups this week.
I think what jumps out to me, Chris, is the incredible midweek matchups we've gotten back-to-back weeks to start the season. I mean,
I'm impressed these teams being willing to like challenge themselves in the midweek.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with it.
Southern Miss versus Ole Miss is going to be a scrappy good game because you're not going to have Hunter Elliott. You're not going to have your ace Friday Saturday guy pitch to me. Maybe a younger guy who you have a lot of belief in the talent and stuff that they have, and that's going to be a really fun game to watch. I think, as well as 21 Troy versus 18 Mississippi State at the Dude. I think talk about a Tuesday night game that's going to be a sellout. I think that'll be a sellout, Chris. I mean, that's going to be another scrappy game. And Troy, Auburn walked them off late in the game. Southern Miss beat Mississippi State last week. Those are two of, I think, the biggest games of definitely the biggest midweek games across the country, I think. I think another sneaky one, Chris, on Tuesday, Jacksonville State, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Very not far down the road from each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have Brendan Norton, who was at Jacksonville State. I'm just saying, I think that'll be a sneaky one. Outside of that,
Florida at Stetson's a sneaky game. Stetson's a good team.
I was thinking about mentioning that, but I can't mention
Stetson's a postseason team. Stetson is like, you always see them as like a 3 seed in a regional.
I can't mention half the board, though.
Say that again?
I can't mention half the board.
Well, yeah. Well, I that's mine. I'm mentioning that one because you took all the good ones, essentially. So, and then I'll say
we both knew the ranked ones were going to be that, but so
I'll say
Alabama.
I'll say A&M Texas State. A&M bouncing back from a loss first time this season. I mean, kind of interesting. And Texas State's got a good program. When I think of Texas State, like the only thing I think about is their pitcher that one time like throwing the horns down after they beat them in Austin. That's like all I think about when I think about them. They got a good program though. Like they're one of those teams in the midweek that you can expect, Harrison. You see them and you're like, it's gonna be a fight. This is not gonna be your 7-inning run rule game. Probably it's probably gonna be a tough game in the midweek.
As for Wednesday, Chris, I know we both are on hammering number 19.
I mean, that's the game of the night. That might be the game of the night in college baseball. I haven't looked at the whole slate.
So I haven't looked at the rest of the slate for it, but I think that absolutely will be. That's going to be a scrappy one, especially at a neutral site, in the Globe. I think they're super cool atmosphere and, experience for both teams to do a midweek like that. I think another sleepy one, Georgia at Georgia State. Mm-hmm. I think it'll be a high scoring game.
Hey, we saw Georgia get chippy in the midweek last week. So do we see more of Brian Curley? Do we see another tongue flick at a guy on second or something? Who knows? We'll find
exactly.
out.
I think that'll be a good one. I think maybe Georgia pulls away late, which just like out hits them, honestly. But I think just it's gonna be a big bullpen game day. But Chris, something that might be flying on the radar is Florida playing back-to-back midweeks against solid mid-major teams. Mm-hmm. Stetson from the A-Sun and then North Florida from the A-Sun. Yeah. Because you're playing at Stetson and the next day hosted North Florida. North Florida's not a bad ball club either.
And then we know the Gators in the midweek. You got to keep an eye on them. So
exactly. So don't be surprised if there's chaos around the SEC.
There inevitably will. Somebody's going to lose. I definitely think somebody's going to lose because again, the uncertainty with the pitching and changing up the lineups a little bit here and there and a lot of really solid mid-major programs that are gonna take advantage or try to take advantage of the opportunity. Obviously,
are you taking an upset pick this week or no?
Man, I mean I'll tell you this: where I lean, I could see Southern Miss beating Ole Miss. Dude, I'll tell you this: our guy Dave Shoemate, for those that don't know, his family's from Hattiesburg, so he's very familiar with Southern Miss. And he told me, as much as they don't like Mississippi State, like we were talking about last week, they hate Ole Miss. Like Southern Miss hates Ole Miss. So they're going to be playing in that game hair on fire. Unfortunately, I could definitely see Stetson beating Florida. Billy Barlow will go for the Gators. You know, we'll see. They need to get a quality. He had a really weird start to his game last week. Hit the first guy of the game on the first pitch. Gave up 2 runs in the first inning without giving up a hit. So they'll need to get off to a better start. And they were down like 5-0 that game, the 5th inning, and came back and won. So, you know, it's tough to say. I mean, does Troy go into the dude, beat Mississippi State? That's a
what surprised you they did.
I think Sanford could beat Auburn. I mean,
yep.
Another
not far down the road either.
Is Lindenwood beating Mizzou an upset at this point? I don't know that it is. I really don't know.
That's tough. I mean, the two I lean, I'm gonna say Southern Miss, Ole Miss, and then I'll say Jacksonville State, Alabama, and then toss Troy, Mississippi State in there.
Maybe they're a little fat and happy after the Jacksonville weekend.
Yeah, emotional high.
Yeah.
We had a huge weekend, huge walk-off in it, and midweek can be probably more of younger guys starting in a bullpen. I mean, I don't think you can sleep on them.
Yeah, Bo Molinari even mentions in the comments, can see Texas State giving the Aggies some trouble. So on that note, Harrison, we're going to get into some comments here. Take your questions, guys, as we close out the show. Again, Travis Davidson earlier, I got to highlight this. SEC Unfiltered leading off the show with OU baseball. Can't believe this is my life. Put pressure on amateurs works. We got a little pressure from the OU folks. So listen, pressure's good. I love
credit
that.
where credit's due.
Credit where credit's due. I love that there was a reason for it. Rizzy highlights Vitello is currently the winningest coach in SEC baseball history by percentage, passing the legendary Skip Bertman. Yeah, I mean, Tony V's a legend, man. What he's doing there is incredible. I mean, doing it at Tennessee is awesome. So it's really, really cool. And it shouldn't be a surprise, I don't think, to any of us. Bo says Michael Early's post-game presser after his first loss was excellent. I've never been more impressed with a first-year head coach. I got to be honest, I didn't see it. I'll take your word for it, though. I mean, I'm not surprised at all. Michael Early he's in that spot for a reason. So David speaks, Tennessee has to show LSU, A&M, Arkansas, Florida, and the Mississippis we are still top dog while welcoming Texas to the party. Yeah, I mean, they're going to have their opportunity, obviously, all throughout SEC play. So that's where the real proving and separation will happen. Let's see. Dalton says, NIL has changed college baseball the most in terms of getting talent on campus, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, it's from the standpoint of the SEC, we've talked about this, Harrison, being able to go out and kind of pick guys off in the mid-majors, the Ivy Leagues. Yeah, it's definitely – because transferring has always been a thing. I mean, you're a JUCO bandit, junior college, and getting guys that way. It's always been a thing that way. But now guys can just go to whatever school they want. It essentially almost serves as a JUCO. You can just transfer wherever at any time. So
mid-majors turned into JUCO. JUCO's turned into high school. High school's gotten the blunt of it, the absolute worst. But I want to mention a comment.
Yeah,
I have been preaching for now 2 weeks. Position to change the football helmet behind Chris to a baseball one for baseball season.
I got to get one. That's the thing. Yeah, I got to get an SEC.
Go to your local Goodwill, Academy, sporting goods store. Get a used one.
You know what's funny, too? I've actually got
a sticker on there.
Well, I've got 2 extra decals. That's actually a great idea. I'll have to do that.
Spray paint.
Yeah, I'll have to do that. Well, I will make that happen. I promise. I'll make that priority. Jake with the savage shot here. If my brother-in-law pitches against Mizzou, Lindenwood wins. Okay. There you go. He's calling his shot.
I don't know your brother-in-law, but
yeah, he must be a stud. He must be a stud.
I'm gonna go probably not though.
Bo Molinari says, which matchup are you most looking forward to once we get into conference play? Oh man, how do you pick just one? I mean, Texas A&M jumps out. LSU, Tennessee jumps out. I mean, dude,
A&M at Tennessee jumps out.
We could just go down the list of all these great series. So, but what I am looking forward to, Harrison, as we wrap it up here, and we're going to talk more Thursday, obviously. We'll preview everything, break it all down. The slate we have upcoming this weekend is an electric factory. It is an electric factory between rivalry weekend in Gainesville and Columbia, South Carolina. More of these big-time tournaments, Harrison, with LSU going to Frisco. You've got A&M, Mississippi State, and Tennessee going to, I think, the Globe Light, or Houston. I think that's Houston. They're doing the Houston tournament. I think Auburn's actually at Globe Life. They're in the tournament this weekend at Globe Life.
Big test for them.
Big test. You got Texas in Vegas. Field's not crazy good, but still a test for Texas again. Dude, it's going to be awesome. Before we get out of here, Harrison, I'm not going to ask you, we did this last week, who was the biggest winner of the weekend? I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It's Oklahoma. Or maybe you could go Bama, but it's Oklahoma, I think, for what they did. Biggest winner of the college baseball weekend, I think, Oklahoma. Final thoughts, takeaways, what you saw from the second weekend of the SEC baseball season.
Saw a lot of growth, and I think overcoming adversity for certain teams and certain teams figuring out, pieces that work in certain roles, whether it's a pinch hit or a guy batting seventh versus, ninth, or a guy batting, second versus fourth. I mean, there's big differences in those kind of roles. You get a really, really good look at more bullpen arms this weekend and seeing, hey, this is the guy we can throw in a situation like this, or we put him in, he delivered. We're going to give him another opportunity. Things like that. And, overcoming adversity when you lose to, a mid-major team as an SEC team, that's going to only pay dividends if you use it correctly and bounce back from it as best you can down the road. So a lot of growth, and this is the time to do it non-conference play. And like you said, this upcoming weekend for non-conference still is one of the best I know we've seen. So I'm excited for that. I know a lot of teams are excited for that, and we're in the thick of it, Chris. We're in the thick of this baseball season.
Yeah, it's going to be electric. My big takeaway, Harrison, I've got to go back to Oklahoma, and I think people are seeing, I picked Oklahoma to finish ahead of Texas, and people thought I was crazy. You're seeing why. Like, from the standpoint, and it may not happen, we got to put some respect on this Oklahoma Sooners baseball program. There's a lot of high-quality teams in this conference, but Skip Johnson's no joke, man. Skip Johnson's no joke when it comes to OU, and I really just hope, because we've talked a lot, Harrison, about the ballpark, and I've talked to some other Oklahoma folks about the investment in the program, and I think that's really going to determine what Oklahoma is in the SEC on the diamond, because they've obviously got the right head coach, and they got a head coach that can get talent. Yeah. I just really hope Oklahoma rallies around this program, invest in this program, invest in their facilities, continue to invest in Skip Johnson, give him the resources he needs, because they just obviously showed over the weekend, like, what they're doing, the foundation at minimum they've got laid, it's working. And Oklahoma is going to be a force.
They were in Omaha in 2022, I believe.
They were in the finals against Ole Miss.
In the finals against Ole Miss.
They were in the finals against Ole Miss, had a chance to win it all. So, Oklahoma is the big takeaway. And outside of that, Harrison, just the depth of this league is crazy, man.
I love that, investing in the program at Oklahoma. I think that's it's
a big part. It's a very big part.
Yeah.
It's a very big part.
It will be going forward, especially in a conference like the SEC.
Yeah, and again, this isn't something where I'm just like pulling this out of thin air. You talk to folks that love that program and love Oklahoma, and that's the thing they mention. Like, we'll go as far as we're willing to invest in our program. And I think
it's
Oklahoma,
an arms race.
Yeah, it's an arms race. And I'm not saying Oklahoma won't do that. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, but I think that's going to be so pivotal for them. Outside of that, man, again, the big takeaway, this league is just crazy, man. It's so deep. These teams are so good. Even the quote-unquote middle-of-the-pack teams, you see what an Oklahoma did over the weekend and Alabama did over the weekend. And, yeah, it's the best conference in college baseball, and it's just not even particularly close at this point. So,
yeah, exactly.
And we should highlight SEC, ACC. Let's put that to bed for a bit, because Oklahoma, Virginia, Alabama, NC State, let's put that to bed for a little bit. Let's just leave that there. It
just means less this week.
It just meant less for the ACC, and sometimes the SEC, you just got to remind them who daddy is. That's it. You got to remind them who daddy is, and the SEC is still daddy in college baseball. So, on that note, we'll close it out. Again, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, guys. Like I mentioned, we'll promote on social media. Really excited to take the SEC Unfiltered Tour to Gainesville, Florida this weekend to watch the Gators and the Hurricanes. Again, we'll continue to promote it throughout the week. Gators, Canes, and Gators, Aggies on the hardwood. Going to be a lot of fun. Harrison, it's always a treat, man. I appreciate you taking the time. This is always so much fun. I feel like the shows are getting even more fun as we go throughout the season, because we're getting more and more notable results, and it's going to take us right into conference play, man. And boy, then the real fun will begin.
And these teams in the depth of the league and the elite talent across the board, because of how the landscape of college baseball is with transfer portal, NIL, gives us so much incredible performances and things to talk about. It's incredible. It's only going to get more throughout the season with conference play and then postseason.
Harrison, appreciate you, my man. Again, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much for the questions, the comments, the engagement. A lot of you were excited for this show today, and we just can't say thank you enough, man. I'm truly amazed every single day and grateful for you guys' love and support and passion for not just SEC baseball, but the sport of college baseball. The fact you guys love it as much as we do, it's awesome, man. So again, appreciate you all. We will be back on Thursday as we always are. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. For Harrison Fant, I'm Chris Phillips. This is The Windup, SEC Unfiltered's bi-weekly college baseball show. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you all on Thursday.